Hello, everyone, and welcome to the award-winning Connecting with Kim show here on Tampa Bay Arts and Education Network. We're so happy you joined us today. I'm your host, Kim Droege. So, before we get started, I want you to follow my Instagram, Facebook, and X account so you can find the latest information about the show, about my guests, and about my on-air wardrobe, which is supplied by my sponsor, the Spring of Tampa Bay, who provides empowering services and safe spaces for survivors of domestic violence and their children. And they do a great job, and we want you to support them. You can find clothes at the thrift store, which is located on North Willow, just north of Kennedy. And they do a great job there, and the net proceeds support their mission, the Spring of Tampa Bay. And I also want to mention that you can catch our show, the audio of our show, on Sun Radio at 96.3 FM and on your favorite streaming platform Monday, Wednesday, and Friday at 3:30, in addition to watching our show on Spectrum 636 and Fios Frontier 34. So, I am so excited because I have a really great guest. I love all my guests, you know that. But they're a first-timer. And I know you're just going to, love this. And so I won't hesitate to introduce to you Mr. Van Ayres, who is the current superintendent of the Hillsborough County school system. Welcome, Van, to Connecting with Kim.
Yeah, thank you. Pleasure to be here.
It's our pleasure. We're so glad you could take time out of your busy schedule to be with us.
Of course. Wouldn't miss this.
So we start every show on Connecting with Kim the same way.
Okay.
And we like to give our guests an opportunity to share their life journey, whatever they feel comfortable with. And that usually brings us to whatever we're going to jump off and talk about today.
Yeah. Life journey is pretty simple. Tampa, 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 Tampa. So I was 49 years old. Getting ready to turn 50 in October. Big 50.
Okay, it's a good thing.
Yeah. So born and raised in Tampa. So both interesting about me is both parents as well. Mom and dad born in Tampa. Both mom and dad graduates of Hillsborough High School. I was, of course, born in Tampa, grew up through the Hillsborough County Public School System. So I am a graduate of the Hillsborough County Public School System. Started off at Mort Elementary and Kindergarten, and when back in the day we were 6th grade center, so I went to Lockhart 6th grade center, Oak Grove 7th grade center, was over at Hill Middle School for 8th and 9th, and then graduated, go Big Blue, Jefferson High School, Dragon. So graduated from Jefferson back in 1992. Remember I told you Tampa, Tampa, Tampa.
It is really true.
So I'm not done.
So impressed.
I'm not done. So then, guess where I went to college? University of Tampa. So I went to University of Tampa, played baseball there a couple years in 92 and 93, graduated from there in 1996. Actually had a chemistry degree, straight up chemistry major. Wasn't sure what, at 20, I was actually young. I was 17 when I graduated from high school, so I was 21, not sure what I was going to do. So I took a job at Blake High School teaching chemistry. Fell in love with it. So was at Blake for basically from 1997 until 2012. So for 15 years, I was a science teacher, chemistry teacher. I then became an AP for student affairs at Blake. I was an AP for curriculum at Blake. And then in 2012, had the really cool opportunity, and my goal ultimately, I started, as a classroom teacher and loved it, and then kind of just wanted to make my classroom bigger, so to speak. So I became an AP and then eventually principal. Had a really cool opportunity to go back to Jefferson, where I graduated, of course, at 17 years old, to go back there as the principal in 2012. So
that must have been awesome.
It was the coolest experience. Yeah. I miss my days as a principal. I miss my all my kids from Jefferson. One of the best jobs. Second best. This is number one now. But one of the top. That was incredible experience to go back. To have that experience to go back to the school that you graduated from was incredible. So. Did that, graduated, got
became
to be
the principal.
Became the principal over at Jefferson, and then after that, was appointed deputy superintendent in 2015 under Jeff Akins. Spent 5 years as his deputy. Then under Mr. Davis was the one of his chief officers for his tenure this year for 3 years, and then in June of last year was named interim superintendent for Hillsborough County Public Schools, and then just 4 months ago was named permanent superintendent. So it's been an incredible journey. Hillsborough County and Tampa is my heart, and I want what's best for Hillsborough County Public Schools. And when after the last day, I'm no longer superintendent. I will always be a part of this community. This community is part of me, part of my family, and so that's kind of my journey. Have 2 kids that graduated through the Hillsborough County Public School System. They went to Roland Park. My daughter Sophia, who is a senior now at UCF, she graduated from Blake High School, so she went to Blake, graduated from there. And my son Ian just graduated last year from Robinson High School. So she was a Yellow Jacket, he was a Knight, and they're both off at the university setting now. So here I am, just really
living the dream.
Living the dream, have an amazing job and experience to lead. People don't realize this, but we are the 7th largest school district in the nation. People don't realize that.
Well, before we get started on how large our school system is, I just want to say, I've met you on a couple of occasions. I remember one of the last times I saw you was at the Cuban Club in the parking lot of Susan Valdez's event, right? Which was a great event. But your reputation really precedes you. I think you ought to know that, and everyone speaks so highly of you and your dedication, and just having you relate that history to our watchers and listeners, I can see that you really are, number one, the best man for the job.
Thank you.
And number two, not to say that women aren't a good fit for the job too, but you happen to be the right person, and that your heart really is in Tampa.
Yeah.
And I think that is like critical.
Yeah, I mean, it is. I've always thought about, what makes my job incredible right now is to be the superintendent of the school district that you came up from.
Right.
Having the experience, knowing our community. I cannot even imagine trying to jump school district and go be a superintendent of a district that you don't know the people. I mean, that is for me, we're a people business. Where I'm at is, it's all about our relationships that we form,
right,
and trust in the community, and people having trust in Hillsborough County Public Schools, trust in me, and I take that most serious of anything, and that's kind of where I'm at with that. But just a tremendous
Well, you
job
bring so much to the table because you've had so many experiences in the school system, right?
Yeah.
I mean, you were a student in the school system,
teacher
in the school, all the way up to principal, and then, so I mean, I think that kind of perspective and experience is hard to duplicate in somebody else, right?
It's interesting because this is year 27 for me now in Hillsborough County, right? So 27 altogether. I can tell you even today, I sit back and experiences that I had as a teacher, I relate to today in my job. So it's about what the experiences you had as a classroom teacher, as an AP, as a principal, and that really affects my decision making today. And knowing our community, knowing what our individuals that are in those current positions now, what they're kind of feeling, because I've been through it and I've done it.
Exactly.
So
I think that I am so happy to hear that entire history because I think it's so important. So let me ask you, as a relatively new superintendent, I know you were acting since last June, but you're now officially the person. What has been your biggest surprise stepping into the superintendent's role?
The vastness of the job, and we are we are the 7th largest school district. It is the workload. I don't stop. So that was number one. It is a non-stop. You always feel like I'll go to bed every night, and it's always about, in my head, I got to call this person, I got to do this, I got to do this. So it's always thinking about, you're never done, right? You're never finished. You always feel like you need to communicate and talk to one more person. Because like I said, I build, my leadership is based on relationships and the relationships that I hold within this community. And it's always feel like you're never done. And for me, like to check things, I'm a check off the list kind of guy. I like to get things done, and it's like that list just is continuous. So it's a challenge, but I absolutely love it. Absolutely love it.
I could tell you do. I've had experiences in the past where, I say to people, being the second or third or fourth person that's never the same thing as being the person. It's always different. You can look at it from afar, you can be involved in it, you can interact with it, you can do all these things, but it's never the same.
Never the same. It's I think about the workload now compared to other positions that I've had in the past. They're all strenuous. They all have their own challenges, right? Mm-hmm. But you just never, when you are as superintendent. So I have 7 bosses. I have 7 school board members that make sure that I oversee the day-to-day. My job is to oversee the day-to-day operations of the school district. So it's a very stressful job as well, knowing that we have 230,000 students within our school district, and I want to make sure, number one, that what their experience is, that they're safe and secure every single day they go to school. So it's just
and that's a big thing these days. Now, I don't want to bring up a sore subject, but what I'm talking about.
No, absolutely. It's that's ultimately number one. Our parents and our kids deserve that when they walk into our schools every day. Number one of utmost importance is their safety and security. That we're going to take care of them, and we've done an amazing job. I have a great team that I have leading that, and I could be happier with them. But that is always number one, and knowing that they're taken care of, and always, and like as I talk to our team, it's always it's pretty simple. You treat every child as if they're your own, and if you do that,
I love that.
If you do that, then the things are going to be okay. You're going to make the right decision. So I try to think about that. Even all the the high level decisions I got to make is always my forethought is, how does this affect our students, right? That is in my decision making. Whatever decision we're going to make is, how does this affect the students of Hillsborough County?
Well, because for a lot of these children coming into school every day, it is going to be the one consistency in their life, right? It's going to be a safe place for a lot of children. It's going to be a place where they're going to be fed.
Yeah.
They know they're going to receive some nourishment that day.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a lot of things that go into it now that I think when I was growing up, and maybe when you were growing up, were not part of the equation, right?
So now more than ever, there's so many distractions now too. So distractions now, don't even get me started on cell phones and all that, but the distractions that our students have to deal with now that we didn't have in our generation. No. We have to be there to care and support for them, and that's of utmost importance that that our staff in our schools care about, like I said, care about each one of their students like if they're their own, and when you do that, you're okay. But it's Love the position that we're in. We have an amazing school district, I will tell you that. And part of my, when I came in November, June as interim, when I came in, my message was always around Hillsborough strong. Everyone matters, every day matters, right? So we are, being from Hillsborough County, we have a long list of just outstanding educators in Hillsborough County. Let's build on that culture of great educators that we have. Everyone matters. I've said it from the beginning that there's not one person that makes our school district tick. It's about everyone, from our custodians to our teachers to our student nutrition staff. It's all about all of us working together to provide the best environment for our students all across the board. And the last part of that is that every day matters. And this is where some of the challenges, we haven't got there yet, but
we will.
I'm gonna give you one.
There'll be enough time.
Yeah, as we get to challenges is, part of my what I always talk about. Everyone matters and every day matters. Consistency, right? It's providing that consistent day-to-day that education the best every single day, which leads us to some challenges around attendance and making sure that ever since back from 2020, it's become almost okay to miss school, and it's not okay.
It's not okay.
Not okay. You got to be in school every single day, and that is my message. To any parents that are listening out there. Cannot miss school. We can't expect. I hold my teachers to high expectations. They can't do what they need to do if our students aren't in school every day. So
if you're just joining me now, it's a good time to take a break. My guest in the chair today on Connecting with Kim, thrilled to have him, is Van Ayers, who is the superintendent of the Hillsborough County School System. So you've been in this job. You have a lot of different experience at a lot of different levels. Okay, so what would you say as you look out now? What are the challenges for the school system? 7th largest.
Yep.
What's the budget?
As the 7th largest school district, we have a total of a $4 billion budget that we oversee. But remember, we have 235,000 students. So some of the with our budget, basically two pots of budgets that we have. We have capital dollars and operating dollars, and our capital dollars are basically based on our property tax values and how much value our properties have. That's how much money we get as a school district to be able to maintain our buildings. So we have our capital side, and we are people may not realize this, but across the state, as you look at us, we are a property poor, student rich school district, which means our property values don't compare to other school districts. And I'll give you an example like Pinellas or Sarasota or even Manatee that have lots of waterfront property, so they generate lots of property tax values that then they can use those dollars for capital expenses. Biggest challenge now is we are a growing school district. We've got Waimama Plant City that is growing tremendously. It's all this new growth, Kim, that we've got to keep up with, and that's why it's important, that we, we have to keep up with all that, and we have to have the funds to be able to do it. So on our capital side, we don't get money from the state to build buildings. They don't say, well, you need new schools, here you go. It's all based on your capital dollars that you receive, and that's why if you remember back in 2018 with the half-penny sales taxes, we needed additional revenue because we weren't generating enough.
I remember that, and it passed. Everybody in my area majority of the county voted for it.
Yeah, and
It passed with no problem at all.
That has been a game changer for us
Yeah.
to be able to do what we need to do to schools to fix.
Because that was a capital tax.
Yes, ma'am. It was capital. Yep, that's right, Kim. So it was a capital tax. We needed that to fix all the air conditioners and HVAC systems, and so we needed that through our half penny to be able to kind of pump that up a little bit to get our capital, because our 1.5 mils from our capital, just bringing a property pour, it only gives us so much, and we've got all this to fix. So that half penny allowed us to help get ahead of projects and do some things that we weren't able to do before. But that doesn't help us with new growth. So now I've got new growth, and we get funds from the county for impact fees. So we'll get impact fees that help us offset some of that new growth, but it's never enough for all the schools we need to build. So one of the big challenges for us, it's a great challenge to have, is we're just a huge growing school district. I mean, we're all that South County area.
Oh, I live there. Don't tell me. I know.
Yeah. I know. I've driven through it with the traffic is something. And it's continuing to grow, which is an awesome challenge. Hillsborough County, why people are coming here is because Tampa, as we know, is the greatest place to live, have the best schools, and they want to come here, and we have to be ready to take that on and have schools ready. I don't ever want to go back to a place where I'm sitting with, remember the old double sessions where you'd have schools where we couldn't build them fast enough. So we used to have, back in the early 90s, we had double sessions where you would have, as an example, you'd have freshmen and sophomores that would go from 6:30 to 11.
That.
Remember? And then you'd flip, and then you'd have the juniors and seniors come in. That is not something I'd ever want to do.
No.
And that, it's not even on. So don't get me wrong. That's never even on the map for us to do that. But those are some of the extremes that happen when you can't keep up with all the growth. So it's always about us trying to stay ahead. And honestly, thanks to back 30 years ago. Remember in 1996 we passed that community investment tax. That helped us tremendously and be able to build schools and keep up with that growth. We actually built Riverview High School, Shields Middle, Davis Elementary, some of that community investment tax dollars that helps us offset some of all that growth we're having. So growth it's a great challenge to have, but it's also those things that keep you up at night.
Well, it's kind of a vicious cycle in the sense that growth leads to more revenue. Revenue leads to more demand on the revenue, and what happens with property values? Because you are, I've lived other places in this world, so I can tell you that in the United States, in this world, that where school districts had their own, and people, you need to know this, they had their own taxing authority. So you could have your property taxes set, and then the school system could tax all on its own, and it did, right? And there was no stopping it.
Yeah.
And so I think people here need to understand, at least you have an opportunity to voice your opinion and give your input on how valuable it is to you.
Yeah.
Because, your property and the value of that property and the desirability of that property directly affects the school system.
Absolutely.
Right?
Absolutely.
So I'm kind of curious, this idea that's floating, and I'm sure you've heard about it, this idea that's floating in the legislature right now to do away with property taxes. I'm like, well, how's that going to work? For things like school systems.
Right. That is our main revenue that we receive is through our property taxes. I mean, we receive, so we have to participate in our FEFP, we call it, which is our Florida Education Finance Program, our FFP. We have to actually allocate a certain required local effort, they call it, to be able to participate. So we'll levy dollars through the property taxes to be a part of the FEFP. That way we can capitalize on state sales tax and things that help us, bring in more revenue. So the FEFP system is actually a amazing system because it equalizes funding. So it takes poor counties.
Right.
So this is on the operating side now. So we were on the capital side. On the operating side, it takes poorer counties. Monroe County, I'll give you the keys, it's a rich county, and it levels the playing field. So you don't have counties that high property tax values have a huge advantage. So it basically takes funding and says, you get this much funding based on the number of students that you have. So if you look at how we're funded third behind Miami-Dade and Broward because we have the third most students.
Right.
So that kind of helps level that playing field. What has happened on the operating side is now we've got, it's complicated, but the state statute allows an additional mill to be levied for additional operating costs. So what has happened over the last 15 years, Kim, is we've got districts surrounding us, Hernando, Pasco, Pinellas, Manatee, Sarasota, they've all as counties gone to the taxpayers, to your point. The board on its own can't just raise taxes, cannot. All it can do is take my recommendation and give the opportunity to the voters to be able to see if that's what they desire or not. So where we've, on our operating side, is you've got now a equalized FEFP system, and then now you've got all this additional revenue that those surrounding counties have, that additional mill that they then push onto their operating side that gives them, more funds than Hillsborough County, because we don't have that additional mill for the operating side. So that's kind of the 101 of education
Well,
funding.
it's important for people to understand this
so thank
because,
you for
like
giving
I
me
said,
that opportunity.
I've lived in places where the school, so your property taxes were set by whatever municipal authority was in control, and then on top of that, the school system could levy its own separate
I've heard of
taxes.
that. Not here.
And
Yeah.
they could have all the public meetings they want, but I can tell you one thing: they were going to levy that tax,
Wow.
whatever it was, regardless. So, I mean, I think it's a tremendous. It's tremendous that the voters and the taxpayers and residents of this county will have, hopefully, I know you're working on it right now, will have the ability to say whether or not they agree.
Absolutely, absolutely. So they'll do that on our board. Will probably make the decision on. We're set for on April 2nd. Well, they'll decide. I'll need they'll vote. I'll need at least a majority vote to then allow the taxpayers to make that decision. If those of you that listeners are listening, back in 22, we did it it was done in a primary election, and it failed by like 500 votes. So it's something that I've been pushing for, because we have to allow ourselves as a district to be a little bit more competitive. But I'm just trying to get the word out now, just on the educating around how we're financed, and the importance of schools are the hub of our community, right? People aren't going to move. Public school education is the most important thing we provide in a community.
What's the most important thing we provide in society?
Yeah, education.
I mean, we are all affected by the quality of the public education school system, right?
ma'am.
I mean, we all are. So, I mean, I never forget that fact.
Yeah, and we are lucky in Hillsborough County. We have tremendous schools. If you just look at our high schools, and you can go down the list, we have great high schools, and that have graduated some unbelievable students over the last, years, from 50 years, right? So we're in a good place that we have a great school system, great schools with lots of tradition, right? And that tradition, all of us that have been born and raised in Tampa know of all our schools that just have a tremendous amount of tradition, and we continue to build on that.
It's difficult to speak for every parent in the world, but I think, on the whole, parents want to be able to send their child safely off every day, to get educated in the public school system, to have opportunities to engage in extracurricular activities that they have a particular interest in, to have the ability to compete in sports if they want to, music, art, whatever it is, and know that after they sent their child off that morning, that the child is going to come back to them that night, and that they're going to work together to ensure that child has every opportunity. Because that's what's really all about, right? I mean, I grew up in a household where my parents constantly told me that, and I'm sure yours did too. If you graduated at 17, so you must have been an exceptional student, right?
Well, they put me in school, Lord. I don't know if I was exceptional. They just put me in.
They just put you in
I
early?
think I was like 4.5. They got tired of me, so they put me in school.
Okay, you need to go to school.
Yeah.
Okay, we only have a few minutes left, so I know it flies by, especially when
I thought we just got started.
I know, especially when we're talking about such important stuff. And I'm so grateful you had the time today. But is there any other topic that you want to cover before we end this? Because I want to give you every opportunity as the new superintendent to connect and inform those people watching and listening out there.
Yeah.
You can't have enough communication, right?
Can never. But just know, my main message would be. We have a very aggressive strategic plan in our district. My priorities are really what most important to me is our reading literacy rates, right? That is an area, we talked a little bit about iPads and phones, and that's something that this younger generation now faces, where they're always on. We've seen it, TikTok and all this stuff. It's ridiculous, constant. So it's we got to ensure that with our we've launched a Hillsborough Reads Rise in 5, which is really around our proficiency for reading. That starts at third grade. So from kindergarten to third grade, really, with our primary students, you learn how to read from really 0 to 3 years old. And then 3 years old, 3 years old, pre-K, all the way up to third grade, you learn how to read. And once you reach third grade, it now becomes you read to learn. So learn to read to learn. So having students that are proficient at reading in third grade is a priority for me, that we raise those rates up. We're currently sitting, right around half right now that when they reach third grade are proficient in reading, and that number's got to skyrocket, and that's my primary focus, because you unlock literacy, you unlock possibilities, right, for future. Yeah.
As I say to everybody, if you are functionally illiterate, what does that mean when you become an adult? I'll tell you what it means. You can't understand a mortgage agreement. You can't understand a contract of any kind. You can, it impacts your life in so many fundamental ways. So I totally agree and applaud you on, we have to get that rate up.
It's got to be,
you can't give directions. You can't read a map. You can't, you can't read a diagram.
And the numbers within Hillsborough County just shows this, even at third grade proficiency, those students that then when they get to senior, that graduate on time is like 98%.
Yeah.
So if I can just get to third grade and be proficient in reading, and then sets them up, because it's tough if I'm not proficient in third grade, and once I get into fourth grade, where I have to read to learn, if I can't read at proficient levels, then I'm always trying to catch up.
You're behind the curve.
Always behind the curve. We're trying to catch up. So we're really a focus around our pre-K, K1, 2, getting them up to speed. But they have challenges. There's challenges that, like I talked about, that we didn't face, and they just where we used to watch TV for a few minutes, now they're on iPads, endless scrolling. So for us, it's a challenge all around. Because it's a skill, right? The more you do, like anything, the more you do of it, the better you're going to get at it. So you got to practice.
Well, you have to come back because we're out of time.
This is great, man.
And I know you want to come back because you'll have the millage
we'll come back.
to talk about the referendum, which is going to be on the general election ballot, right?
So it'll go to the board on April the 2nd. So if it is approved, then it would go to general.
Okay, good.
Yep.
All right. Well, I can't thank you enough for being in the chair
Kim.
today and connecting with Kim. My guest, if you're just joining us now, and you'll have to go back and watch the whole interview because it's very educational, is Van Ayres, who is the superintendent of the Hillsborough County school system, which is a huge school system. So thank you for joining us on Connecting with Kim today. We're glad you joined us. Thanks to our sponsor, the Spring of Tampa Bay. And every week, we work hard to bring you information to help you live your best life in our corner of paradise. So come back next week. See ya.